Hey guys, Justin Ledford here, and welcome to the Real Construction Owners Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Adam LeBar, and we're going to be discussing how this man is empowering military families to build wealth through real estate. If you're a contractor or an entrepreneur, you're going to want to learn these investing strategies and this mindset hacks. This class is brought to you by Federal Construction University. It's a course specifically for contractors and entrepreneurs, teaching you how to build wealth by completing highly profitable government construction contracts all over America or in your backyard. You'll be given an online course that's an A to Z blueprint that'll teach you everything you need to know to start winning government construction contracts, how to protect your company, how to get paid by the government, how to get the jobs done. If you want to start winning deals where you make $100,000 per deal, then you need to pay close attention and go to the link below and check out what I've created for you. I've won deals all over America, from Alaska to New York to Hawaii to California to Ohio, and made lots of money. And now I teach contractors how to do that at federalconstructionuniversity.com. I also have a brand new book, Federal Construction Contracts Simplified, where you'll get it for over 80% off what I normally charge. Check out that link below. All right, guys, let's go and dive into today's lesson. Welcome to the Real Construction Owners Podcast, where we interview real construction owners and businessmen doing big things to help you go from being a stressed out operator to a thriving business owner. Today, we have a personal friend and of GoBundance, a man named Adam LeBar, who has a mastermind called Active Duty Passive Income, where he teaches retired military men how to grow their portfolio using real estate. He also has over 400 doors himself, and he served our great nation in the military. Today, you're definitely not going to want to miss this, because there's jewels of wisdom scattered throughout this conversation. So stay tuned. What's up, Adam? How you doing, brother?
What is going on? Thank you so much for having me on, Justin. I much appreciate it.
Amen, man. You know, we've tried to get on, 3 times now, but we're just so busy. It happens.
It's like we're running businesses and stuff, and making a difference in the world. So
yes, and that's what businesses are supposed to do. We're supposed to impact, inspire, and give people opportunity. So good for you, dude. Hey, quick question. Before we get started and go into the meat and potatoes of what this lesson is about, I want you to tell us your background, and don't be shy. Brag on your victories, your accomplishments, as to why the people listening in on this show would want to listen to you.
Okay. So I'll try to make it semi-brief, but we'll see what I can do. So I was raised in a military family. I was a military brat, bounced around all over the country. I went to one school. I've gone to maybe 10 different schools, only one of them for more than 2 years. Before I graduated high school, then joined the military myself. I was a paycheck-to-paycheck guy for a very long time. I saw my parents do that, so that's just what I thought you were supposed to do. The government gave me a paycheck every 2 weeks, so that meant I had 2 weeks to spend that money before I had another one. So then, I got married after I got out of the military. I was in college, got married. My wife had this magical thing called a savings account that I had never heard of before. And I said, why in the world would you be saving money? My wife's Air Force as well. And I was like, you get paid every 2 weeks. Why do you save money? This doesn't make any sense. And then she was like, oh yeah, I invested in that. So, investing? Why would you do that? You get a pension in 20 years. This doesn't make any sense to me. Because I had never experienced that. So before you know it, I'll fast forward a little bit. I said, yes, I should totally be looking into real estate. I started jumping into that, understanding as much as I could. I skipped right past all the single family stuff. The very first property I ever bought was a 62-unit apartment. I was living in Japan at the time, and it was in Tennessee. So what happened for me is I got around a group of like-minded people who were motivated to do this type of stuff, who chatted about it all the time. It's one of the reasons you and I are in GoBundance. When you get around people who are striving to become better than they are right now, they want to be better tomorrow than they are today. It really changed my thought process, because for years I thought I was the only person. I spent 4 years just educating myself, and I was like, well, nobody else wants to do this stuff. It's only those people on podcasts outside of reality. They might as well have been movie stars to me, like the people I was listening to on podcasts. So I just figured I had to do it myself. So then I bought that 62 unit, which was an unbelievably dreadful experience, but it gave me a master's degree in real estate and operations and partnerships. And we had a partner we had to get rid of. We had contractors walk out on us. We had a bunch of stuff not go to code. We had to refinance from bridge to bridge, which is a terrible thing to have to do in the real estate world. It's very difficult, but it taught me a ridiculous amount. I ended up buying a few hundred more doors after that. that just really propelled me pretty quickly. And then active duty passive income is an education company. It teaches military members and veterans how to invest in real estate. I got involved with them right at the beginning of my multifamily experience to kind of guide people through what I was learning on the multifamily side, to kind of teach people what we're doing. And then we created a multifamily course, and now we've got some 65,000 or so people inside of our Facebook group, a bunch of different paid folks inside the mastermind that are out there absolutely crushing it. I think our last count, we had our multifamily mastermind in particular, we're involved in a little bit over $1 billion in deals in real estate. So it was pretty awesome to kind of see the transformation over the last few years. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. So you went from like just hustling, paycheck to paycheck, broke, to what the heck is the savings account, to, going through the trenches in a battlefield while in Japan, getting a 62 unit. That sounds like I'd love some more details on like the pain, why somebody would fail. Like, what are the lessons, the painful lessons there, and what someone should not do. But keep in mind, you learn valuable lessons from that.
For sure. Yeah.
With that being said, how could you elaborate?
So there's a lot of things, right? So I want to make this applicable across the board, not just in real estate, right? So one of the biggest pain points that we had in this was we didn't do upfront discussions in our partnerships, right? Like that 62 unit. We kind of had an idea what we wanted to do. We sort of created a business plan. We kind of had ideas. There wasn't a lot of integration. We didn't have a good business plan. We didn't look at things from a strategic standpoint. Like, okay, what does this look like in 3 years? What is this? It was just like, dude, we're all excited. Let's get into this deal. Let's make this happen. And a lot of people do that with business too, right? I mean, I've done it later on with another business I was creating, where we all just got so excited that we didn't take the time to settle down, have the conversation. Okay, what's this partnership look like? How do we want to work this? What are your actual duties? Not, hey, I'm going to be the guy that's doing this. Like, no. Specifically, what are your duties? How are you going to be working this? What is going to be happening? What are my duties? What do you expect from me on a weekly, monthly basis? How do I make sure that you're doing your job? How do you make sure that I'm doing my job? How do we hold each other accountable, right? So you and I, you just told me that you just got off of a level 10 meeting. So I know you know EOS. For those of you who don't know EOS, you should look into it. It's great. Like it's a system that you can use to make sure that you're getting the stuff done, right? So if we were to have those weekly meetings, if we were to have those level 10 meetings, our property would have gone a lot better. So making sure the systems are in place. I'm not saying that don't do what I did, where 4 years of analysis paralysis, making sure I had everything just right. Well, if I do this one more conference, if I just learn this one more thing, then I'll actually do it. No, you have to take action. You still have to go out and do the thing. Just do it wisely and smartly, right? So we did not do that very wisely and smartly. So, for instance, I had a partner that did not have a contract at all for the hundreds of thousands of dollars in work that was getting done on the property. It was a handshake. And I said, so when I asked, I said, hey, I want to review the contract when we were getting ready to have to go bridge to bridge on that property, which for those of you who don't understand what that means, it's a short-term loan that's, 12 months with an extension of up to, maybe 12 more months at like a 12% interest rate, 10 to 12% interest rate to get your property up and running. So that's a bridge loan. It's a bridge to get you from where the crappy property is now to where an institutional like Fannie Freddie type lender will be able to loan on it. Those you don't typically do bridge to bridge. Like you finish with that bridge and you're done, or you lose your property. So it took a lot of work to get a second bridge to be able to go in there and do that. But so I said, hey, let me review the contract. And it was, it was more of a handshake. And I thought to myself, Adam, you're an idiot. You should have been asking these questions to begin with. Not just like I just went and said, oh, they've got that part. Let's do it. No, like if we were to have weekly meetings that set up and said, okay, how's the operations of this? Where are the things going with that? Can you show me with this? And we had those conversations, it would have saved a ridiculous amount of heartache and money later on. But so there was some really hard lessons learned on that first deal.
The key takeaways that I get from that is when you're starting a business, you have to have the upfront discussions. You have to have a business plan. You have to have accountability, organizational chart of what people are going to do. What are their deliverables? Because if you don't, then you're running around like you're a chicken with your head cut off. And and on top of that, whether it's government construction or fixing apartment or any type of construction, you have to have a contract in place that clearly defines the scope of work, the construction schedule, the payment terms. And without that, you're, like you said, you're like, what is going on here? So with that, you were able to get past that. Now you have over 400 doors. That's awesome. I'm curious about the systems and processes that you have in place currently that enable you to scale it at such a high level, and how can that be applicable to the contractors listening here?
So for complete transparency, I've sold a majority of those doors now. I've had about 400 doors, but I've sold a majority of them. And the reason I was able to do that, A, was the market, and B, we had the right systems in place to be able to get the property where it needed to be. So what we'd set up was, so we knew who in our partnerships, all right, who was responsible for what. So I did a lot of asset management. I did the underwriting up front on these properties. So I understood the business inside and out. So I said, okay, I understand real estate. I know exactly what I need to be doing. This is how I want to work this property, the plan. Okay, so I'm going to need this much in rehab per door. I'm going to need this much in for parking lots, parking lot repair. This much for upgrading our garages to storage units. I'm going to need that, whatever it is, whatever the business plan is. And then go in and say, okay, well, now I need to, we have a good property manager that we've already vetted. So how do we work this inside of there, right? So now, all right, we're going to have weekly calls with our property management team. They're going to give us an idea of, how many maintenance requests are there, are currently on queue, and how many we were able to complete last week. That gives me an idea of how many, are we on a good churn? Are we losing? Like if there's 100 of them in there and we only completed 5 in the last week, we're on a very bad track, right? So we need to be able to complete more of those if we have that big of a thing. So keeping track of the right data that tells you how your company is doing. How many people walked through the door? How many applications were filed? How many of those were we able to close and get to be approved applications for any of our vacancies? How many vacancies we actually have? How many vacancies we're expecting within the next month? So all these things are discussed on a weekly basis with our property management team, and then on a monthly basis, I then review all the numbers. Okay, where is the property this month at? Where have our expenses gone? Is it on track? Am I off track? Is it lined up with the business plan? Do things go well? And all of that needs to happen to make sure that the property is actually functioning well. And those were big lessons I learned from, again, that first property where I did none of that work. I just assumed somebody was, but they weren't. So now we've got all the systems in place to be able to do that.
That's incredible. So you're literally using the EOS method on your real estate portfolio when you had them. You had a scorecard, a weekly scorecard. And if you don't know what a scorecard is, it holds people accountable to a number. So one person's accountable, like, hey, how many open tickets did we have last week? All right, 10. And how many of those were completed? 8. Okay, well, you get an 80 this week. And like you can rate people and hold them accountable, because without accountability, there's no, like, things don't move forward as fast as they could. And you can't grow the business. So that's really good. I want to talk to you about, I'm trying to figure out like the best scorecards right now for my business, because I just started the EOS process, and that's the issue that I'm like really trying to figure out. We can have that conversation on another day.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah, or later. Now, I'm curious, talking about your military background, could you tell us a story of, where you had to lead people, or it was just an epic scenario and the lesson you learned from it? Because so many people here doing what we do, we didn't get to go to the military. We didn't get to serve our nation that way. And first and foremost, thank you for that.
Nice.
Where did you serve? What'd you do? Can you tell us a story of, and a lesson you learned from the military?
Boy, there's a lot. That tool chest is full of a lot of different tools that I apply on a daily basis, right? So, I've done a bunch of different stuff in the military, right? So I used to be an aircraft maintainer on the stealth fighter many moons ago, back when that used to be an operational aircraft. It's no longer. And I was a K-9 handler. I went and found bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan with the Army, jumping in and out of helicopters, doing some fun stuff there. So it's one of those things, like, I'll say that in general, like, that's one of those times where I go, like, we have a problem with the business. I'm like, dude, I ain't getting shot at. Nobody's dying today. We're okay. We'll figure this part out of the business, right? Like, not a big deal. So it gives you a different perspective on life with that type of stuff, right? But
that's so cool. We're not getting shot at today.
Yeah,
nobody's gonna die.
No getting shot at today. We're okay. This business thing will keep on functioning. We'll make this happen. There's two scenarios that come to mind right now. One, going back to that one property, right? I didn't realize that my very first property, I didn't realize the skills that the military had taught me that were very applicable in business and real estate. Anytime we wanted to get anything done in the military and you needed to bring a third-party person, and you always got 3 quotes. You always got a contract. You always got 3 quotes. You knew exactly what was going on. So it was like, okay, which one is the cheapest quote? I mean, it's the government, so we're always going to go with the cheapest one 90% of the time. So, all right, which one is the cheapest, but still gets the scope of work done that we need? Okay, well, then we're going to go with that one. Had I used those skills and gone, that's when it really hit me, was like, why are we not doing this? We should have gotten those 3 quotes. I just assumed that these people knew that. I didn't understand it, right? And had I thought about that and gone to my managerial skills and said, okay, well, I understand systems, I understand processes. We have standard operating procedures like crazy in the military. There's SOPs for everything. So had we set up SOPs, then it would have made a big difference. So now creating SOPs in our education company is a big deal, like making sure that everybody knows, like if you're in the military, we had like binders for everything, right? So if you were the base training manager and you had to do whatever, then you're going to have a binder that says, hey, this is what I do if this happens, this is what I do if this happens. The security forces folks on the Air Force Base, they have quick reaction lists. If somebody says that, there's a bomb threat at something, they pull out the little binder that says bomb threat. They put it down. Step 1 says to do this. Step 2 says to do this. So they've systematized everything so that it makes it as failure resistant as possible. Because if you follow the checklist, you're going to get 90% of the way there, but if you don't follow the checklist, you're going to have a hard time. You're not going to remember, you're going to forget this, you're going to forget that. So creating those SOPs has become an extremely important thing for me. I suck at creating them, but I know that I need my team and I to create them to make sure that we do well with this stuff. So one particular operation that comes
so valuable.
It's
the SOPs are crucial as the construction owner. I mean, from all the way
any business owner.
Yeah, for any business. Person answering the call, person dealing with the customers, people doing the collections, from the salespeople. You have to have SOPs, and you have to write them down and make them very clear. Because if you do that, that's how you can scale your business. And what would you say was the next lesson? You did always got to quote SOPs. What was the next one?
So there was one operation in particular. So while I was in Japan, we had somebody that, so I was a federal law enforcement officer for, if you guys have heard of NCIS, I did that, but for the Air Force, it's called OSI for the Air Force. So I did counterintelligence criminal investigations all around the world. So while I was in Japan, we had a guy that mailed himself, I don't know, it was like 40 pounds of marijuana or something like that, right? So he had a bunch of weed getting mailed to him. And it's
a guy in the military?
Yeah.
Okay, so
you got loads of stories for that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, he was selling a bunch of it, right? So, I mean, I had a guy, a different story, but, got around $500,000 of meth mailed to him.
Wow.
And two separate packages. So, I mean, we're America, so we've got criminals too, right? So, so this guy gets a bunch of stuff mailed to him, right? And the Japanese law enforcement are very, very strict with a lot of stuff, meaning they were like, hey, we've got this all packaged. It took us in typical, like, look at that one package I was talking about, the $500,000. That was here in America when that happened. We were able to collect the stuff, weigh the stuff, realize what it was, get something set up, be able to deliver it to his house and get it knocked out in a matter of like 2 days. So he didn't really notice any change in the mail delivery system. When we were in Japan, it took me over a month to get the Japanese government to realize that we were able to do this. Like, let's make this happen, because they were the ones who found it. Let's work through these processes. They were so stovepiped in everything that they were doing that it made it difficult for us to be able to accomplish the mission. Once we finally were able to do it, I think we paved the way. I'm hoping that they're able to do a lot more of those now. But it turned into a decent operation. We did a joint thing with the Japanese and us. We're finally able to get it working. We're able to get the train moving. We accomplished the mission. We got the stuff delivered. We did everything we were supposed to do. So it was.
And then you busted the guy. Right?
Well, that's a different story for a different time. But in general, yes, we did. We went and searched his house, did all the stuff. But what it taught me was, yes, the SOPs are great. Right. We need to have those SOPs, but we have to have flexibility in our mission, right? Because things happen in life, right? The Japanese didn't know, like, a lot of times we were working investigations with them. They had no idea what to do with certain things. So there's a lot of crime that happens, but nobody knows it, right? So because the Japanese law enforcement basically says, hey, don't don't mess with the Americans, don't mess with tourists. So everybody that goes there and visits, they don't see any of the crime because it's pretty well hidden behind closed doors. But that doesn't mean that the operations are going well. I was able to see inside, like the operations aren't going well. I don't care what it looks like outside. I need to know that everything's going well inside. So if I have it too stovepiped, if I'm not having the right communication, if things aren't going well, then it's going to falter, it's going to fall apart, and the business is not going to be successful. Where, yes, I need to have all these SOPs, but I need to be able to pick up the phone call and say, hey, I know this is typically how we do things, but hey, Justin, I need some help with this particular scenario. This big thing just happened. It's very out of the ordinary. Can we accomplish this? And I need to know that we have the flexibility to do that. And your team needs to know that they have the flexibility to do that. To get on a call anytime something's going on to say, hey, something changed. Can we do this? Yes, absolutely. Let's make it happen. We can flex for anything because that's how we need to be able to be. You know, the military says semper gumpy, always flexible. You know, like always be gumpy, that you can move anywhere and anytime. So
That's interesting. That's like a core value or something. Gumpy, I've heard that.
No, it kind of feels like a core value because you're like, all right, whatever. You know, flexibility is the key to air power is what the Air Force say, right? So okay, I guess we got to be flexible.
That's awesome. You know, that's the thing about bottlenecks. If you don't have an SOP, you don't have your processes dialed in as an owner, a construction owner, you will get bottlenecks and things will take longer than they should. You'll lose out on missed revenue. You'll have customers upset with you. So those are very valuable tips on what you just said. I'm curious, you said you sold a majority of your doors. I'm considering selling a lot of doors and just getting a lot of cash because we heard that the event recently that, you know, Warren Buffett has more cash than he's ever had in his life right now for the upcoming, you know, recession or whatever you want to call it. How many doors do you currently have?
0.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You sold
So
the door.
we're in the middle of a 1031 right now. So potentially going to get some more. We're working on identifying some properties, but yeah, I've sold pretty much. Well, not even pretty much. We just recently sold the last bit. Yeah, I'm looking at that saying, hey, I need to hold on to cash. I want to do all of this stuff. The same thing that you were just mentioning. So
what's next for you? Like, what are you going to do next? Now you got the cash. What are you going to do?
Yeah. So I've got a couple different options. One, I'm looking at, a couple buddies of mine in GoBundance and I want to go buy some vacation rentals that we can use for ourselves, but also, Airbnb and VRBO and that type of stuff. We have nice vacation rentals in the various different markets that we want to be in. So that's one thing that I'm looking at doing. ADPI, the Active Duty Passive Income Company, we're starting a fund as well. Working with the SEC. There's a reason I left working for the government, and now here I am trying to get the government to give me permissions to do things, and it's driving me absolutely insane. So we're getting a fund up and running to be able to go buy multifamily on a much larger scale. So that was another reason that it's changed the trajectory of what I'm doing. It's sold a majority of that stuff to be able to focus on these ventures.
Awesome. So you're basically going to put together syndication deals to where people can pull together their resources, and y'all can acquire more properties, fix them up, refinance them, and basically own the properties. Is that the game plan? Is that what you're saying?
Sort of, yeah. It's not quite a syndication, right? So a syndication is your typical, not to get too deep into the weeds here, but I'm a real estate guy, so I talk a lot. But 506B, 506C is your typical syndication type stuff with your friends or with accredited investors. This is a Regulation A fund that we're building, which means we can advertise anybody. We can take anybody as an investor. We don't have to have a pre-existing relationship. It costs a lot more money. It takes a lot more time. But again, we have 65,000 people in our Facebook group. We've got a large community of people. We have a bunch of other people who would love to invest in military investments, military RAND investments, I should say. So we've got an opportunity to be able to create this and take as little as $500 from our investors to be able to say, hey, you can invest with as little as $500 into real estate, get a K1, understand what this process is, do a lot of this stuff. It goes into hand in hand with education as well as real estate. So it's not normal syndication. This is going to be, a fund that is able to buy, maybe a dozen apartment building side of it. So it's a bit of a different animal, but
nice. That's awesome. For the contractor listening in, they make good money. They're looking to invest. What would you say are like the first couple steps of somebody getting started? And keep in mind, yours is unique. You were in Japan and you bought a
yes
unit. Most people get started with like buying foreclosures, using their construction skill set, fixing it up, finding a tenant, refinancing, and going that route. what would you say to a contractor who's like, man, I got to get on this investing train? Like, what would be their first steps, or maybe a resource that you would point them in that direction?
So, the benefit is you talking to your folks, got the ability to do the contracting work. You understand that world. You understand how that works. Figure out what you want your niche to be, right? And I know it's a cliche statement. Niches get riches, right? Niches make riches. So figure out your niche. What is it that you really think that you want to be successful? Maybe multifamily, maybe it's single family, maybe it's fix and flip or fix and hold, right? And refinance those things, right? So if you've got those knowledge and ability to be able to do all this stuff, you understand the contracting world, you understand how this work does. Maybe you're not the one who wants to do it, but you know how to get done. You can easily plug yourself to, let's say, like I'm looking at a deal right now, not too deep, but I'm looking at a deal right now. It's I think it's around 55 doors. So I think it was that needed a lot of construction work. Not exactly. I mean, I know how to do it. I can manage it a little bit, but I'm going to hire somebody to do some of the construction management. Where if you come in and say, hey, these are my knowledge, skills, and abilities to tell everybody and their brother about it. Like everybody and their brother needs to know that you want to do real estate, that you want to do investing, and these are the skills that you can bring to the table. When somebody finds that deal, goes, you know what? I think I remember Justin saying that he knows how to do. Let me give him a call. Hey man, I've got this deal that needs some work. Or is that something you're interested in? Absolutely, I'm interested in that. And then you get your foot in the door, part of the percentage of the general partnership, or even just if it's a joint venture, then you could just own a part of the company for man that construction. Now you're using your own expertise to get yourself in the door, and using that sweat equity to build your net worth, as opposed to trying to pull out of the capital to do something. You could also invest in syndications, that type of stuff, and to learn along the way. And say, hey, I just want to invest passively in somebody's deal. Give them, most syndications, it's like a $50,000 minimum or so. So you give them $50,000. You sit there and listen to them talk about the stuff. You get on the calls. You learn as much as you can. You enjoy getting the return on your investment. And then you say, okay, well, now I understand this a little bit better. Let me move into doing this myself, or, adding it to, all of my other construction folks, starting a podcast to be able to get people out there to, find investors. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but I'm going to say, find the niche that makes sense to you, that you're comfortable with, that you really want to do. Learn as much as you can about it. Know that you have skills right now. You're operating a business. You are in the construction world. You know how to do things that a lot of other people don't. Use the strengths you have to grow your future, right? Because you're going to build more skills, but use what you have now to make a difference in your future.
It's interesting you say that, because, I started this podcast to selfishly connect with people and learn from them, while at the same time hoping to add value to contractors. And so I'm learning so much. I got a page full of notes on what you're saying. And there's some people that are like, you know what? Right now is not the time for me to be investing in real estate. I need to be investing in my business. And talking about putting the right people in place to buy your time back, to give you freedom. For years, that's what I did. I invested in real estate. And the last year, I just decided to start investing in people. And now I have free time, and I'm living in Costa Rica because I have people running my business. Speak on that. If somebody's like, I don't want to invest in real estate right now, but I need to find key players, put people in the right seats. What would you say to that?
So I think that's a fantastic thing. If that is the reason you're not investing in real estate, if you're not investing in real estate because you're like, oh, well, interest rates suck, or, I'm just waiting to time this thing, that's a terrible reason. That's a different reason. But if you're saying, hey, I think that right now is the best time for me to invest in my company, I think that makes perfect sense. There was a guy I was talking to in GoBundance, I don't know, last year sometime. And he was talking about how he doesn't have enough time in his thing. He's got this extra money left over to invest. And I said, then why aren't you hiring somebody? You've got this $100,000 that you're there. Why not hire somebody for $80,000 a year? Put that in your budget. Say, this is what I'm going to do for this year. If they're able to accomplish what I want them to do this year, if I find the right person, which I always, and it was confirmed while we were at the event, because you and I were just in Tahoe together, I've always said we need culture first, right? Find somebody who fits your culture, who understands your culture. And if they're the right fit and they're going to be able to propel your job, your thing forward, then budget it. Say, okay, I'm gonna budget this $80,000 for this year for this unbelievable person that's going to crush it. They're going to give me a bunch of my time back. I'm going to be able to grow this company even more, be able to build this stuff even more, make sure they're a right fit for the culture, make it you could set it up as a basically like a temporary contract type thing. Are they accomplishing the goals they're supposed to be accomplishing in the company to make this pave their own paycheck? right? If they're able to pay for their own paycheck, then you keep them on, right? They're making it happen. Do it. Because you're going to get your time back. That's going to make you much more effective to work on your business instead of working in your business. Because you and I both know, Justin, that if you're sitting there every day doing all the typing, doing all the grinding, doing all the stuff, your business isn't growing. Your business is moving. You may be making money, but you're not making this thing bigger. You're not growing it to the capacity that it has because you're so focused in the business instead of taking that 1,000-foot view, look over the top of it, say, okay, what actually needs to happen? Who should be sitting in that spot? Because I don't think it's me. Who should be sitting in that spot? Because I don't think it's Susie. Who should be sitting in that spot? Because I don't think it's Danny. Oh, I think Danny and Susie actually should just switch. And if you start to take that much larger strategic view, figure out where you need to hire, and have a plan for it, then your business is going to go a lot farther, a lot quicker. And it's something that we've seen with ADPI and what we're doing and some of the changes we've done. So I definitely speak from experience in that one.
That's awesome. Putting the right people in the right seats will enable you to, because if your business isn't helping you achieve your dreams, then you just own a job. And the whole purpose of building a business is giving people the opportunity to run your business for you, and you get to empower, impact, and give people opportunity and take those profits. And for me, it was buy real estate for all those years, but now you're making me rethink. Maybe I should sell my real estate and do something different with it. Now, I'm curious, what process do you have in place to regularly, because this is my selfish question, I want to learn how to get these deals. What process do you have in place to regularly acquire these larger duplexes, complexes, 50 doors, 60 doors? What's your process?
So it's changing right now with the fund, but previously what I was doing is broker phone calls. You need to have a certain number of broker phone calls every week, like talking to different brokers who are sending you deals, so that you're the first person they think of when it's time to sell a deal. We're all going to get a bunch of emails. If you get on an email list, you can get on a billion email lists. If you do what I've been doing the last 5 months and just review them and say, hey, maybe I'll look at that one, then you're probably not going to get anywhere. But if you're making the phone calls, you're actually underwriting them. So it's one of those, you kind of have to look at 100 deals before you can get one under contract. So, what do I need to do to look at 100 deals? I need to talk to 15 brokers. So how do I need to talk to 15 brokers? I need to do this many phone calls every week. So if I'm doing 2 phone calls every week to brokers, underwriting 3 deals every week, after those 2 calls, they start to snowball over themselves to make sure that it goes. And again, if you're not the underwriter, but if you're not the underwriter, then you need to find somebody who can go and underwrite these deals. Like, what makes sense? Do I know in general that this is going to be a deal that makes sense, so that I can give it to somebody who can underwrite the deal? That's all important stuff to be able to do. What's up?
When you say underwrite, I'm so simple. Like, I just buy single family doors, 1 door, and fixed it up and put a tenant in and refinance, and then they pay my mortgage, they're paying my asset off, and I'm making a little money on that asset. But what do you mean when you say underwrite the deal?
So underwriting a deal in the multifamily world is really just, you probably did it on your single family, you just never called it underwriting. You looked at how much the property was going to cost, how much your expenses were going to be, how much it was going to cost to rehab this thing, what you thought you were going to get on refinance, what you thought you were going to get in rent, and am I going to make the cash on cash return that I think I want to make? Well, that's underwriting. Right. But on a multifamily side of the house, you're looking at it at, maybe it's 100 doors where I'm going, okay, well, what kind of financing am I going to get? What kind of interest rate am I going to get? How can I broker this out? How much cost per door am I going to be expending? Like you did it on a 1-door scale, which is the same thing on a 100-door scale. I just need to add 2 zeros, right? So if it's going to be $10,000 a door to fix your thing, okay, well, I'm going to need $10,000 a door over here too. It's just 100 doors, not 1. No big deal. So now the bigger number is bigger, but it's still the same thing. It's still how much I'm going to cost per door. So going through that whole analysis process, looking at the rent comps in the area, I'm going to go to apartments.com and I'm going to say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. How much can I get for this 2-bedroom? How can I get for a 3-bedroom? This is about what it's going to be. I put it all into my spreadsheet. I analyze it all, make sure the market's doing the right things. That's all underwriting. So, we do it with our businesses as well, right? Okay, well, what we're doing our business planning meetings at the beginning of the year or the end of the year, depending on when you do them. Okay, well, all right, so this is where our expenses were last year. This is kind of what we're looking at this year. Do we think, was this expense worthwhile? Was this one not worthwhile? How do we want to project into the future? Hey, we want to add these 3 things to our company over here. It's all the same stuff. You're underwriting the business portion of it. Where do the numbers come from and where do they go? So if I know where they come from and I know where they go, I can help to analyze it a little bit better to make sure I'm a more efficient company, a more efficient business. So same concept. This is where I
makes perfect sense.
Everybody's got the skills when they're doing something like this already. They just don't realize how well they transfer over to other opportunities. So
I love it. I love it. Now, what characteristic or habit do you have within you that you practice that makes you so successful?
I don't know. Let's see. So I think one of the biggest things, honestly, is I know that I need to keep myself around a group of like-minded people to keep my brain going. I work from my house. The like-minded people I have are my two boys that I have running around the house. We're kind of on the same wavelength, right? I need that brings me up a little bit, right? So I get in groups like Abundance that I'm talking to people all the time that are saying, hey, this is how I'm doing things. This is how I'm doing things. So it's more of a habit of being around the right people and making sure that I'm hearing the right stuff. So I don't brain, one of my partners, Tim, he likes to say the E/E ratio, the education and entertainment. You should be 80% education, 20% entertainment. So if all you're doing all the time is just you're watching your favorite Netflix show all the time, and you're listening to this amazing YouTube video on how to underwater basket weave, and you're like, well, this is so much fun, and you're wasting all of this time on entertainment, or you're watching reel after reel after reel after reel after reel, and you're just like, yay, and you're like, you just numb to everything. You're not going to become as successful as you can be. You're just not. You need to find the time where that you're wasting, right? So I'm in the middle of 75 hard. If you guys don't know that, look that up. It's a fun time. With a bunch of GoBundance folks, right? So that's how I make sure that I'm staying healthy, is I challenge myself with a bunch of these guys to stay healthy, and I'm eating the right foods, and I'm out exercising twice a day, and I'm doing this stuff. That's the only way that I'm able to stay on top of it, is if I'm challenging myself with other people that they're pushing me forward. Otherwise, I tend to revert right back to my old wireframe of, I'm going to be paycheck to paycheck, and I'm really like, it's easy to go back to the old version of me as opposed to stay on this track. This is where I need the challenge from other folks like you.
That's awesome, man. You're doing difficult stuff, putting yourself through discipline and pain and getting uncomfortable and joining groups where you're not the smartest guy in the group, because in turn, you become better. They say a rising tide lifts all ships, and your ship is getting lifted because you're around people pushing themselves and striving for greatness. I love that. That's one of the reasons I
guess what ships don't rise? The ships that don't go over to where the tide is. You have to be at the tide. Like if I'm on the other side of the world where the tide is going down, my ship is sinking. So yes, rising tide lifts all ships if your ship is parked there. So make sure you're in the right spot. So go to the right spot where the ships are so that you can actually rise with them. So
yeah. And the thing is, you deserve, like if you go there and you might think to yourself, man, I don't deserve to be here. But the truth is, where you show up is where you deserve to be. And that's one of the biggest takeaways. I'm curious, got a couple minutes left in this interview, but what would you say were your top 2 or 3 takeaways from our retreat that we were just at?
Oh, gracious. So, I wish I had my notes in front of me because I took like a billion notes there, right? So for me, I always love Tom Bilyeu. So listening to him talk, he's one of the guys on my education side of the house, my 80% education that I listen to because I loved what he did with Quest. So kind of listening to him and working on, I am not a technology guy, but I have a passion for it, knowing where he's at with it. So thankfully I have people on the team that I trust, know, like, and trust. So looking at the way he views technology and how he views what the future can be was a big takeaway for me to say, okay, well, what can we do in our company that really leverages that technology a lot more than what we're doing right now, that really leverages something like a ChatGPT, that's able to grow our company beyond where my brain is thinking about it, because I have a very analog brain and I'm in a digital world. So I need to make sure that I'm thinking about these things that I wasn't before. One of the other things was I'm gonna butcher the quote again. That's why I wrote it down so that I could have the quote. But it was something along the lines of don't let your perceived view of how a situation should have been ruin the situation that you're in. Right. So I could have this view on things like, well, this deal was supposed to go this way, like my 62 unit. This deal was supposed to go this way. This plan was all of this. And I'm ruining my entire outlook on this deal by wishing that it was another way. Well, it's not. It's this way. So what can I get from this way right now? And that is to focus on what it is that's happening. Realize like that I got a master's degree in real estate, commercial real estate through that process, and realizing a lot of stuff that was able to propel me forward. So don't lose the skills that I can get by wishing that what was happening was a different way. That was another one of the big things for me. I loved.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Now, we come to the conclusion. You have built something special to help the military people get started in investing. Can you share with our audience, how they can reach out to you? Talk to us about your Facebook group, Active Duty Passive Income, and such.
Yeah, so you can activedutypassiveincome.com. You can reach out to me, Adam at activedutypassiveincome.com. Our Facebook group, you can find that, Active Duty Passive Income. Pretty much anywhere you can Google Active Duty Passive Income, you'll find us. We are a large community. A majority of our stuff is free. You can just come in, ask questions about real estate. Come in. It's a majority of real estate stuff that you're gonna find some other people doing a bunch of other different business things inside there as well. But we are a community of like-minded people trying to push each other forward to make a difference in the world. One of our missions is to help our military own as much of America as possible. So, we fought to protect the land. We might as well own the land as well. So if we could teach as many people to do that as possible, be good stewards of their finances, good stewards of their tenants, then I think that we're in a better place. So that's how you can reach out to us. Check us out. I mean, if you have any military affiliation at all, reach on out. Even if you don't and you have questions about anything I said, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help in any way.
And if you have anybody that's in your family that's a part of the military, make sure to connect them with Adam's social media group, because it's amazing. Like, the people who went and served our nation, they have special incentives that normal people don't have when it comes to like VA loans and things like that. A majority of them, if correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Adam LeBar, one of the partners at Active Duty Passive Income, today you deliver the goods, man. Thanks for being on the Real Construction Owners podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope I provided some value to folks.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please drop me a comment. Let me know one thing that you learned, and please subscribe. I'm trying to grow my audience. Hey, I have 6 free classes for you. The link will be down below, teaching you how to win government contracts. I also have my brand new book that I poured my heart and soul into, Federal Construction Contract Simplified. Check out that book. It'll teach you literally everything you need to know to start winning these government contracts. How am I able to do that while living in Costa Rica full-time and still winning government contracts? If I can do it, you guys can do it too. So make sure to check out those links. Until next time, I'll see you on the next video.